Hi, folks. Welcome to this week's episode of Lowdown on Low Code. I'm one of your hosts, Rob Koplowitz. Hey, and if you like what you've been hearing on the show, do us a favor, hit the subscribe button, hit the share button, hit the like button. Help us get the word out to like-minded folks who are interested in low code and digital process automation. Today is a continuation of a really good theme that we've been working on. If you didn't get a chance to see Paul Kobylanski of Shell on last week's episode, go check it out. This is a continuation. We're back with Paul. He was gracious enough to come back and finish the conversation because they're just doing so many great things over at Shell. So with that, what I want to do is I want to turn things over to my co-host, John Rymer, and get us kicked off right away here.
In the first episode with Paul, he shared with us the roots of the DIY strategy, which has resulted in the creation of 4,000 citizen developers working every day to improve operations and planning and so forth at Shell. What we'd like to do in this episode, Paul, is to talk about governance, because governance, it seems to continue to be the issue that stops a lot of low-code journeys in their tracks. The fears, really, that citizen development will just run out of control, seem to really slow people down. And obviously, with 4,000 citizen developers, Shell's done some pretty serious work on governance. So we'd like to talk with you about that today. And thanks again for joining us. It's a real pleasure to have you here.
Great to be back.
So, tell us a little bit about how projects get started. There is often called ideation, where a business person has an idea about how automation can improve their part of the business. And there are lots of ideas. There are thousands of ideas potentially. How does Shell help people prioritize to get to the best ideas and the ones that have the best payoff?
Yeah, great question, John. And in episode 1, we talked about how the business is very close, to the operations, to the data, to the developments that are occurring each day, and also more strategically. And with IT, we have our IT managers and our teams that are very much there to couple and support that, and use some of the tools like low code to expose some of those ideas, to really test them out. So I think the starting place with ideation comes very much from our business users and creating some of the time and space that they need. So they manage the ideation process from the start and the origins. And what we see is very much that low code, alongside other tools and other methods, provides one opportunity, one branch. It's a vehicle, if you like. We see many businesses run their own hackathons, for example. We just completed one in our global lubricants domain, and we've got one that's very much in flight now around process engineering. So taking some of our process engineers that will work on a problem and see how they can use certain tools available to them to solve that. So, business bring those ideas. IT supports that in terms of technology. And then, of course, what you can do is provide not only the tools, but some of the process and training, whether it's around design thinking or, whether joining business and IT together in such a tool as a hackathon, where low code allows you to, create a first instance of something and demonstrate whether there's something to do or whether we want to pivot or persevere. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a sense. Indeed, there are ideas everywhere. What you need to know is which are those ones that are really worth investing in and making really good decisions around, where you go next and when to stop, right? Ultimately, when to discard something as well. Yeah.
So again, I think you've highlighted that Shell is at a place where you can trust, or you do trust the business's sense of what are the top priorities that we need to tackle. Imagine it takes some time to get to that level of trust and that level of sort of expertise or sense by the business. But anyway, That seems to be a theme here, Paul. It's very, very interesting. Rob, over to you.
So, Paul, I've had the opportunity to work with Shell and some of your competitors over the course of my career. And, one of the things I would say that was really stood out to me is I don't know any other industry where safety is more emphasized, safety is more paramount. You talked about applications being deployed into your manufacturing lines in episode 1. And I know the diligence you're going to put into that. And then there's sort of citizen developer stuff like, probably planning, the upcoming birthday schedules and things like that, because it runs the gamut. And obviously Shell has thought through this from the most safety sensitive, privacy, security regulated types of things, through things that are. How do you go about identifying them and segmenting those applications so that all the needs are served?
Yeah, it's a really important question, Rob, especially when you think about what's at stake within our business, within our industry, and our resolute focus on safety and care. When we started this overall program, we invested a lot of our time making sure that we put in place the right framework. So in episode 1, we talked a little bit around IT managing the contours, the boundaries in which we allow people to operate within. And we were very conservative and restrict in the beginning, both in terms of which teams, which areas providing the support for that, and making sure that we're clear on those contours and those boundaries. So if we talk about how we've operationalized this within Shell, we have a default environment. And that default environment is quite a limited and basic environment. If you think about your office suite of tools, it's going to work in conjunction with the standard office suite and tools, right? We call that the default environment and the green zone. You go from there through a progression. In that zone, you're doing a lot of work on personal productivity, personal improvement, personal automation, and then maybe some small team developments for your department and functions. So the things that you digitizing a lot of the paper and process. But to move up and again, to manage those contours and boundaries, you move into that secondary zone. We call it the amber zone, where IT, for example, control and manage and govern the connectors, right? The integration points, the boundaries, and then also put 4 eyes on the solution by way of our coaches, who will make sure that a risk assessment is done, that is accurate, that aspects of data have been properly assessed, whether that be around confidentiality or otherwise. But what's also really important, as you say, is then defining those boundaries where you just don't go, right? As a company, you don't go. You do not build anything that is going to compromise safety. Another parameter for us, we don't build things, for example, within this environment around most confidential or the use of most confidential, or in the place of GDPR, build things that are, customers would use, right? You've got a hard deck, you've got a boundary. So what's really important, and this is for each business, is to understand and define their own contours and parameters of risk. And that may differ from a startup to, a company working in the energy industry such as ours. So, it's a little bit like Lego, isn't it? You've got your basic Lego set, you've got your one with the 10,000 pieces where you create the Death Star, and then you might have the Technics, right? And you think about those contours, but the good thing as part of this, IT is controlling those. We're always looking at what's changing, and we're looking at how we can grow and mature this, but also using these tools, we can build things as IT ourselves. So if the business has got a great idea, but it's higher stakes, higher risk, higher complexity, IT is there to evaluate it, including the value and the level of investment that you would put in to get the return and make that a formal project, or maybe, as we talk about, even a fusion project where developers work together. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a sense, but need to be very careful, need to put assurance in place, need to make sure that you've got those checks and balances, and you're watching whether it's through some level of intelligence or your KPIs that we're managing that risk, because a compromise or an incident would be very, very serious, and that's absolutely what we do not need to happen.
And we certainly appreciate that. So, especially those of us that live somewhat close to refineries. Hold that thought on that last piece around how those folks work together. We'll get back to that in just a second. John?
Yeah, Paul, one of the great ways to further automation is don't build something new. Here's something that's similar that already exists. We certainly saw this back in the SharePoint days, when SharePoint, became a huge business with the templates that people could just reuse. I imagine you've got lots and lots of applications that people are building. Is there a way that the citizen developers at Shell can find existing applications that they can just reuse and maybe tailor to their own needs?
Yeah, this is a problem to be solved. I wish it would be easier. I mean, it's interesting that you just talked about SharePoint, John, because we've been promoting a particular application where someone has used low-code technology to automate the provisioning of access to SharePoint. So to put more of an intelligent layer and to take out the manual request access and provision out. So it's just another example where you can use low-code to improve your governance and improve some of your operations. I mean, we started out and continue to have an exchange, but you have to promote that, and it's a little bit harder to get people to put the metadata in and to present their application. But we have that, and we put that in place, and we try and promote that as much as possible. Sometimes people ask me, Paul, if you could go back to the very beginning, would you set things up differently? And one of the things I tell a lot of companies who are starting out at the moment with a platform is to get the naming conventions really good and right up front. And this is one for the low-code platform providers to make sure that you can really call something shell.process.name. Right? So things are more easily searchable and discoverable rather than someone calling it app one, right? Or my app, right? You get a sense of what it could do. But the other thing that we do from the center and as part of the COE is try and promote. I mean, we have our business cases, we have our value stories, and our transformational change team are a little bit like the truffle hunters. They're going out through the coach network looking for those opportunities to tell the story of that developer, that business, to put them on the pedestal, which has a really positive effect as well. It has that multiplier effect. But at the same time, we run competitions. The hackathons are a really good vehicle to showcase and use certain channels. It is a community, and we've got certain tools that allow us to broadcast and communicate and celebrate. We had an app of the month. It's now, app of the quarter. So people submit. And again, we had some small prizes and kudos in and around that. I guess in the world of looking forward around, they'll call it AI. I'm hoping that some tools will come that, I can say, does this particular application already exist, or help me discover, or point it at an app and say, tell me what that does. So maybe there's some features forthcoming. But yeah, I think documenting and defining your applications better, making that really easy as part of the application development process, so it's not too cumbersome. It's a natural step for the developers, an important one. And then again, gamifying it, recognizing the great work and capturing those value stories. I think people like to share their work. They do.
Oh, yeah.
You just need to support that process to kind of put them onto the sort of conveyor belt to allow that to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Folks, Lowdown on Low Code, our podcast, is brought to you by analysis.tech. Rob and I are analysts at analysis.tech. It's a company that is completely focused on low code. And we have colleagues who specialize in economics. That would be Andy Bartels. We have colleagues who specialize, who have great backgrounds in digital process automation. Gabe Marcus is a great example there, as well as Rob. We have our product expert, Ryan Dugan, who in fact has built a couple of the leading products, low-code products, and has spent his career focused on citizen development. And lastly, we have one of the founders of RPA and a gentleman who is totally committed to low code and actually hates coding. Francis Carden. So engage with us. We're at analysis.tech. And now we'll get back to our conversation with Paul. Thanks, Paul, for your patience with that. Rob, over to you.
So, Paul, earlier you mentioned that class of projects that were either sophisticated enough or mission critical enough or sensitive enough that IT was going to run them, but they would still be built on low code. And this changes the dynamic, I think, pretty dramatically. Requirements gathering, iterative improvement, and change management, all these things work differently. Can you tell us the role of the business people if they're not putting their hands on developing, but working side by side with IT? How does that work within Shell?
Yeah, of course, and IT and business working together is it's critical to success of so many projects. I mean, you're going to have some core projects, but of course, our IT projects, and we have many, our business specialists, SMEs, play a critical role, whether that's in areas such as product management, requirements, testing and deployment. More natively, it's an instrumental way in which we deliver. Within the company, aside from some of our low-code tools that we've democratized for citizen development, we're fortunate to also have many skilled engineers and scientists working in the subsurface domain, our traders, in R&Ds. And so there are a number of more specialized tools and platforms where our SMEs and our business do partake in aspects of development with us, and again, play an instrumental role. But, bringing it back to DIY, what I spoke about, and I think what's important is how low code is breaking down some of those barriers as well. Yeah. When you've got a number of people within a business who've learned a technology, and some of those people have become experts in these tools, right? Working alongside or with our IT who've also learned and professionalized in, it breaks down barriers. It provides a common platform. You bring in, it's not just about the tools, but some of the common ways of working. You think about the language and the taxonomy. Sometimes IT speak in a particular way, and business do as well. And low code is breaking that down, and we're seeing examples, especially where certain solutions are developing and growing, and they need the help and support of IT to bootstrap that, or maybe bring in some of the added professional pro tools and components, or even just some of the ways of working around application lifecycle management and development. And I think, again, that's a beautiful thing. When we speak the same language, when we understand we have a common goal, and we can work together on the same tools and platforms, then what's going to happen? You move much faster. There's less friction, there's less debate. So IT plays a critical role in that, around providing those boundaries, and also bringing our pro developers into the mix and working with our businesses. So yeah, great question. We are seeing examples now where things are moving up the echelons, and, we see our business and our IT developers working in unison to drive much more value through more sophisticated solutions. Yeah.
Fascinating.
That's great, Paul. Thanks. John?
So, Paul, you mentioned multiple tools. Shell has been a big Microsoft customer for many, many years. And so obviously Microsoft's Power, we're assuming Microsoft Power Platform is a big piece of the architecture here, probably Power BI as well. But there are other tools that you've mentioned, and this is another area where people get hung up is how many tools are too many, how many tools are too few. Do I want to? If I standardize too early, will I actually kill the growth of the program? And it's an important governance question, and I wonder how you guys handle it.
Yeah, John. First and foremost, I think most companies would probably say they've got too many tools. Overall, they're trying to manage their estate and the cost associated that their portfolios down. And Shell's no different from that. And of course, it's always around selecting the right tool for the job. We've got a number of low-code tools in play and in place at Shell. So beyond Microsoft, which has been growing its the verticalization of its technology from visualization, apps, and automation now into AI. But Salesforce very much used ServiceNow, Pronto Forms, and then when I talked about citizen data scientist, AWS, have a great product in SageMaker as well. So what you've got to do is recognize that there are some tools and suites that are going to be more utilitarian, and again work with your modern desktop environment that you use for communication and people use each day. You've also got to think about your data sources as well, your platforms, your cloud, and how things are going to interoperate at the same time. What we found, Microsoft has provided a good, cross-functional utilitarian platform, but some of the others that I mentioned are very much key. ServiceNow we're using very much for our IT processes and how we deliver IT services, for example. ServiceNow, beyond ServiceNow, you've got Salesforce that very much is around that business and B2B or B2C, vertical at the same time. So it's about picking the right tool for the job and looking at the needs of the business and the attributes and what you want to achieve through low code. But I probably have a thought on that. Isn't every vendor trying to make their technology easier to consume and safer at the same time? So there's probably an evolution around this where, low code permeates, everybody's product stack and most parts of technology as well. At least I hope so.
Yeah. Listen, Paul, it's such a pleasure to talk with you and learn from you, and what you've been doing in the program you've been leading. I think we're going to saw it off there. Be respectful of your time. I would like to just say congratulations on the growth of your program and the success that you've experienced. It's inspiring. And I'd also like to say thank you. We're very grateful that you were able to join us here today on our podcast. But more to the point, I think I'd like to thank you for just the work you're doing to help people understand, people around the world understand this movement, because I think all of us who have come to speak with you and know you appreciate your willingness to share and to help us understand. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Privilege.
This isn't the last conversation, because we've got AI coming along, and boy, that's something really worth talking about in the future, isn't it?
An exciting topic for sure. And again, privileged to be here and on behalf of so many of the IT leaders, the managers, the coaches, and our citizens who are doing their incredible work. It's just such a privilege to represent them and have the opportunity to talk to you. So let's keep going.
Thank you.